อยากกินเหรอลูกอยากกินน้องหนูอยากกินโอ้ยมันอยากกินโอ้ยโอ้โหเป็นลมโอ้นอนเลยทำยังไงดีเอาแล้ววะ
Anywhere.
The smears against me range from distortions of my personal life to wild, and I mean wild, conspiracy theories. I won't be intimidated by a lying media.
Still, the accusations against Gates have at least one member of his own party calling for him to resign. Why does Rep. Adam Kinzinger think he should go? The accusations are stacking up. The Daily Beast now reporting that Gates sent 2 late-night Venmo transactions in May 2018 for $900 to his friend Joel Greenberg, a former Seminole County, Florida tax collector and accused sex offender. The next morning, according to the outlet, in an 8-minute span, Greenberg used the same app to send 3 young women money, totaling the same amount.
All of these women are extremely young.
Extremely young meaning what?
Well, one just turned 18 about 6 months before that happened.
CNN hasn't independently confirmed this report or what the money was used for. From the start, Gates has denied doing anything wrong.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie.
And there's more. Separate from the allegations of sex crimes, the New York Times is also reporting investigators have been told of a conversation where Gates and a prominent Florida lobbyist discussed arranging a so-called sham candidate in a state Senate race last year to siphon votes from an ally's opponent. They cautioned that aspect of the inquiry was in its early stages. Gates did not respond to the Times' request for comment on the allegations. All of this starting to hit closer to home for the congressman in an unavoidable way. A liberal political action committee has put up this billboard in the Florida Panhandle, which reads, "Matt Gaetz wants to date your child."
Randy joins me now. So what kind of reaction did Matt Gaetz get at the event tonight?
It's interesting, Anderson, because the group that organized this is called Women for America First. So certainly an interesting group considering the allegations that Gaetz is facing. But they loved him here. He got a lot of cheers. This was certainly friendly territory. The woman who runs this organization is a longtime supporter of Donald Trump. So it was friendly territory, as I said. But he was trying to bring the crowd to his side even more so, basically making it sound like they were all in this together. He told the crowd, when you see the leaks and the lies and the falsehoods and the smears and the insiders forecasting my demise, they aren't really coming for me. They're coming for you, trying to bring them into it. He also mentioned that this was a week full of encouragement and plenty of donations, Anderson.
With me now, CNN political commentator and former Republican Senator from Arizona, Jeff Flake. Thank you, Senator, for joining us to talk about this. So we've got the first Republican in Congress calling for Representative Gaetz to resign, his colleague Adam Kinzinger, as you see here in this tweet. But that was nearly 48 hours ago. Why have more Republicans not joined in those calls? Are you surprised?
No, not surprised. I mean, you usually wait until some charges are filed or there's an indictment or something happens. But you don't see a groundswell of support on the other side either. So he hasn't made too many friends in Congress, and so he's going to have a rough go when it comes down to an indictment or some charges coming down. Then he'll face a lot of calls to resign.
Yeah, you're right. He hasn't had a lot of outspoken support from fellow Republicans, except for Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who were down there in Florida. You served 6 terms in the House before moving to the Senate. This House Ethics Committee statement rattles off a really detailed list of allegations it will explore. Now, the congressman denies any wrongdoing and blames it all on politics, but should he be worried about the ethics probe? What could come out of that?
Well, obviously, if he wanted to keep serving in Congress, that would be a worry. I would think that this is the least of his worries. right now. Given the charges and what's out there, his main concern is probably staying out of jail. So the Ethics Committee's jurisdiction ends when somebody resigns or is forced out of Congress. So that, I would think, is the least of his concerns, although it was rather telling, the length of the statement and what they said that they were looking into. It's pretty significant.
It is, and as we know, he has said he will not resign. He is now fundraising off the DOJ investigation. He is all in on the Trump playbook of blaming the swamp, the deep state, even though the case started on Bill Barr's watch, the former attorney general under Trump. We saw him at Trump's golf resort last night headlining a Women for America First event of all events. When you see him using the precise and false tactics Donald Trump used to no avail in the last election, should more Republicans be calling him out, if only to protect themselves?
Oh, sure. If it didn't work for Donald Trump, it's certainly not going to work for Matt Gaetz. And it's kind of a tired playbook. They're not going after you because I'm standing in the breach. I'm doing this for you. I think most people just kind of chuckle at that. So that's not very effective, frankly.
But do you think they do? Do you think that, that was what Donald Trump did? He still remains so popular in the Republican Party. I know that is something that you think will not last, but Donald Trump's playbook is blame everything on the media and the deep state, that he did nothing wrong. And now we're seeing that from Gaetz. Do you not think that that is effective?
No, not really. It's certainly not going to stave off the Justice Department or the Ethics Committee or others. They're going to look at the facts and the investigation. So, I would expect him to do the same. That's what a lot of the Trump acolytes are doing, are taking that playbook. It's just not very effective. If you look at how effective it was for Donald Trump, we lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost the White House. We've lost over the last several years, more than 400 seats in in state legislatures nationwide. So it's not been a good formula for electoral success, certainly.
So then why does he have so much power still in the Republican Party?
It's because in the primary, he is still. You've got to bend the knee, basically, in a Republican primary, and that explains the predicament that Republicans are in. You really can't win a Republican primary, certainly not here in Arizona and many other so-called purple states, unless you're willing to accept the leadership of Donald Trump and not criticize it. But if you do that, it puts you out of step with the general electorate. So that's in general the problem that Republicans have. We have a diminishing base, and until we realize that and look for ways to be more inclusive, we're going to continue to lose ground nationwide.
After the incident began to settle down in terms of the high emotions at play, and the victim here is standing by a car, and the officers are now trying to explain what happened. This exchange makes me wonder why he's only suing for $1 million. Take a look.
I understand you want to get to a well-lit area, a well-lit area. I get that. But when we follow you that long, look at the climate this day, and against everybody, against us, against y'all.
Against everybody.
Really?
I mean, Cedric Alexander,
really? The climate's bad for them.
Throughout my adult life, I've always tried to give benefit of the doubt to police officers. And I've said it on the show, you will never hear me on this show when police officers, whether they are black, Hispanic, white, Asian American, if they're kicking down doors, if they're in a dangerous situation and they make a split-second mistake, well, we don't know what it's like unless we're in that position. But in this case, like the George Floyd case, they knew what was going on. They had minute after minute after minute to correct their wrongs, and they just refused to do it. They continued to humiliate a lieutenant who was serving their country, when they not only had the responsibility, but you would assume had the training to draw back and calm down and understand they had made a terrible mistake. But it just went from bad to worse. And they had to humiliate the black man, get him on the ground, shove the lieutenant on the ground until he started weeping. It is disgusting. And I just want to know, you've been studying this for a long time. Why do we keep seeing videos like this even a year after George Floyd's death?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me this morning. But let me say, Joe, I had a number of people call me here last night and very early this morning here in Pensacola just to discuss what they had witnessed through this video. I'm a 40-year police veteran. I'm retired. I'm back home. I spend a lot of time now talking about reform and reimagining policing and doing my part to try to do what we can do to help change this. But this video that we're looking at, it is painfully egregious. And for him to have gone through what he experienced, not just the fact that he's a soldier, which is really important, but the fact that he's a human being. But let me start by saying this about that traffic stop. They called this in as a felony stop. That was not a felony stop because you cannot see someone tag displayed. So he called it in as a felony stop. And as you noticed in your reporting, he even lied about the type of stop that it was, what had occurred. And then we see this ongoing humiliation, this ongoing just horrible treatment of an individual, a human being who happens to be a military soldier. And we see it in this time that this country is in, where we're trying to fix the things that have been wrong since the inception of policing. So this is not a new issue. It's just that we're able to catch it now on video, and we're seeing it over and over and over again. American policing in this country is broken. It's going to have to be fixed. We cannot continue to move forward the way that we're doing now and expect somehow miraculously overnight something is going to change. It's going to take a lot of legislation at the federal, state, and local levels in order to change these behaviors, because even if you look at that traffic stop, tactically, if that was a felony stop, it was totally inaccurate, wrong, was not trained that way. But it was not a felony stop to begin with. And in addition to all that, to humiliation, calling him out the way that they did, you're going to ride the lightning? No, Officer Gutierrez, you should have been fired the night that this occurred. And he should never be in policing again. And quite frankly, those who hired him in that city, from his elected officials down to his police chief, need to be held responsible, and not just monetarily, but held responsible politically for having that type of personality and individual as part of their police ranks. It's not all about training. It's who we're hiring, and we're not hiring the right people for these jobs.
Amen. And it is. And I just got to say here over the past year, it's not just Cedric saying that and Eddie saying that and the Rev saying that. They will all confirm. They hear that. I hear that from police officers all the time who look at these videos and go, my God, what the hell is happening in the ranks there? Why isn't there better discipline? And Rev, something that I know you hear all the time, something that Mika and I were saying when we were watching this unfold on video was, my God, how many times does this happen when the body cams aren't on? How many times did this happen before we started having body cams, before we started
How could body cams have ever been a debate? Having
cameras on our phones? We're only seeing this now, obviously, because of the technology of the past 10, 15 years, and it shows. You and I have been talking about body cams nonstop. Every police officer in America has to have it. They have to be turned on if an incident like this happens and they don't have it on, then the burden of proof is on them. But Rev, how many times does this happen when the body cams aren't on?
And that is a real fear that we live with every day in our communities. And let me tell you, if it was not for the 21st Century Task Force that President Obama had, there would not be as much body cameras available as there are. I believe Cedric was on that task force. We had to fight for that, and I hope this administration and this Congress will legislate. We've done the demonstration. We need the legislation. This will not stop until bad police, and most police are not bad, but bad police know they will be held accountable. Until they know qualified immunity is not going to shelter them, until they know there is a penalty for this. We are faced this morning with this tape with a 20-year-old young man unarmed that is dead, whose family is going to be reaching out to someone. That's where people like me and National Action Network step in. How do we explain this over and over again without changing the laws? The good news is you are right. Many police are now beginning to speak up. For the first time, we saw police officers take the stand in Minneapolis and testify against Chauvin, which I've not seen in the years that I've been out here fighting against police misconduct. I've never seen the blue wall pierced as it has in Minneapolis. But even as that happened, a policeman still can take his gun and shoot and kill right in the same county that this trial is going on. We need to deal with, if there is no legislation, there will not be a change in behavior in bad cops. Bad cops are not going to be converted. They have to therefore be convicted in the court of law if they do what is wrong.
Well, this former President Trump ripping into the Senate's top Republican. Trump allegedly blasted Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, calling him a dumb son of a bee and a stone-cold loser. Trump made the harsh comments off the cuff while speaking to RNC donors at his Mar-a-Lago resort over the weekend. Joining us now to discuss is Jason Miller, senior advisor to former President Donald Trump. He joins us live now. Jason, good to see you. So we weren't able to watch, obviously, this donor meeting at Mar-a-Lago, so a lot of us may not have heard it. But from what I understand, you actually heard the president's speech. Tell me about that and these statements made towards Mitch McConnell.
Well, Sean, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, I did hear the speech on Saturday evening. Of course, we always record all the speeches that President Trump gives, and then they send it to me to listen if I'm not there in the room. But this is the reason why folks love President Trump, because they know that he's going to speak his mind. Hey, they might not always agree, or they might sometimes wish the language was slightly different, but they know that President Trump is going to say what he's thinking, whether it's in the Oval Office or if it's in a ballroom with big donors down in Mar-a-Lago, which now is really the center of the Republican universe in Palm Beach.
As far as the comments made, and I think you make an excellent point there. We have known him as President Trump, and he has spoke his mind, and that is a huge reason why his base loves him so much. They know his every thought, and he's not shy away from speaking his mind against other Republicans. How was that message received at Mar-a-Lago, or do you know?
I do. In fact, folks really liked it. I mean, the fact of the matter is that President Trump reoriented the Republican Party that had really been split into two parts for most of the last couple of decades. You had the Beltway elites who were pushing things like open borders and terrible trade deals, overseas involvements in a number of different wars. But then you had the conservative grassroots around the country that very much wanted a America first, wanted more of a populist message to be driven. That's what President Trump took in. And so there's been this disconnect between the Beltway elites and the conservatives around the country. Now, when we look at for example, in Georgia, for these two Senate races that came up in January, again, this is another example of the Beltway elites, specifically with Senator McConnell, being disconnected from folks and the message they want to hear. Folks in Georgia heard Republicans saying, we'll give you a $600 stimulus check, and Democrats were saying, we'll give you a $2,000 stimulus check. Well, it doesn't take Stu Rothenberg or Charlie Cook or Larry Sabato to know that voters are going to go with the higher amount. And so that stupid move, there's really no other way to say it. I'll let President Trump go a little bit stronger in his terms than I will here on a family program like Newsmax, but that literally lost us 2 Senate seats, and we blew the Senate majority. And so President Trump, again, being very direct, he's not wrong in his comments. It was pretty poor political strategy earlier this year.
I got about 20 seconds with you. From hearing from former President Trump over the weekend there and hearing what he said, how strong is his support for the Conservative Party, specifically moving towards midterms?
Well, President Trump, a big part of his speech, in fact, you know what, Sean, I think we're going to go ahead and put out the audio from most of the speech this morning so folks can hear it for themselves. President Trump made very clear we want to win back the House in 2022. We want to win back the Senate in 2022, a bunch of these governor seats. No one is more committed to the Republican Party in winning back the majority in both houses than President Trump, and we're currently sitting on